morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Bond Vigilantes TV. Super week, or the most important week of the year. This was how many economists had labeled last week in the financial markets. And even though we were on the whole off to a relatively slow start, eventually things did pick up and we did get some useful information in the end. First of all, with central banks and the Federal Reserve on Wednesday evening, as expected, they hiked rates by a quarter of percentage point from 1.75 to 2%. And on the whole, they were a lot more optimistic on the economic and the inflation outlook. And they were also a bit more direct in their language that was used in the policy statement. So overall, a relatively hawkish Fed. They did maintain the words saying that they consider the current monetary policy to be accommodative in the US. And essentially this means that markets can expect further interest rate hikes over the next few months as the US interest rate remains far from the neutral rate. And this was essentially confirmed by the quarterly economic projections, with which the Fed also published every quarter. If you take the median dot, the Fed now expects 4 rate hikes in 2018, up from 3 previously, and 3 rate hikes in 2019, previously up from 2 rate hikes. That was what was expected before. And it does make sense that, you know, with inflation at a 6-year high, if you take the Fed Atlanta GDP Now tracker, it's still running above 4.5%. So there are no visible signs today that could show that the US economy is actually slowing down. Now moving on to the ECB. The ECB also had a meeting and a press conference on Thursday. And the ECB, contrary to the Federal Reserve, was considered to be more dovish last week. But of course, what's important is that Mario Draghi announced the end of the net asset purchase program by December of this year. So that's really the important news from last week. But the ECB was still considered dovish on the whole, primarily because the tapering is conditional on the ECB's inflation outlook remaining relatively robust. And also because Mario Draghi did say that interest rates would stay at current levels until at least the summer of 2019. So bonds rallied on the whole during the news, but I think that misses kind of the bigger picture. The bigger picture is indeed that the ECB is committed to normalizing monetary conditions, and after 3 years of ultra-easy monetary conditions in Europe and even 10 years of easy monetary conditions across the world, this does mark an interesting turning point, and it will be interesting to see how markets cope in this new environment. So finally, to finish off, back on the US, Trump announced $50 billion of new tariffs on Chinese goods on Friday. China immediately retaliated with $50 billion of additional levies on US exports to China. And what's important here is that even though Trump always refers to the trade deficit, and it's true that it's negative in the US, trading in the world is probably a bit more complex than that. And Deutsche Bank did an analysis recently that shows that if you include the sale of US companies, US subsidiaries of US companies in China, such as Apple and General Motors, which aren't currently included in the trade deficit numbers, the US was expected to be trading at a surplus versus to China last year. And the key message is there that even though the current tariffs, they only shave off maybe a few tenths of percentage of points of GDP for the moment. The risk is that these trade wars escalate, and with what I've just said, we can see that China does have ways to put pressure on the US. So in terms of what to watch out for this week, we have the Central Bank Forum in Sintra starting off this evening. Then on Thursday, we have the Bank of England monetary policy decision. And finally, on Friday, we have the global flash PMIs. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great week. Bye for now.